Number 9. Shenisa Velez. Ever since the implementation of New York State's bail reform laws in recent years, it takes a lot for a judge to be able to impose bail on a criminally accused person. In most cases, the law requires authorities to release suspects without any bail, even when they seem to continue committing crimes over and over. One such alleged habitual offender is 30-year-old Shenisa Velez, who was caught rummaging through Robert De Niro's things inside his New York City townhouse during the early morning hours one day in 2022. She was seen entering the home through an exterior stairway, and police later found signs of forced entry. According to an arrest report, officers found Velez on the home's second floor, where she was allegedly trying to steal Christmas gifts and was using De Niro's iPad. De Niro and one of his daughters were reportedly home at the time, but they were unaware of the intruder. His representative initially declined to comment on the attempted burglary, but when he was seen leaving his home several hours later, he told reporters he was doing good. When asked about the specifics of the incident, he said that they could read about it in the newspaper. Velez is accused of trying to break into numerous properties on Manhattan's Upper East Side before setting her sights on the actor's temporary home. By then, she already had over 24 prior arrests under her belt, mostly for alleged burglaries and attempted burglaries. In fact, Velez is on the NYPD 19th Precinct's list of top 5 burglars. While she could ultimately face some serious consequences if convicted, she doesn't seem to be taking the situation too seriously for the time being. While she was escorted out of the police station, she could be heard yelling, "I didn't murder anyone," and "I didn't go to Robert De Niro's house." At the same time, Velez was all smiles for the news cameras. Number 8. James Freitas. In 2019, a deputy in Lowndes County, Georgia, attempted to conduct a routine traffic stop on a vehicle being driven by James Freitas. He was unable to provide ID, and the details of his story were conflicting and didn't add up. He was already a 3-time convicted felon for trafficking methamphetamine in Polk County, Florida, so officers were extremely suspicious of him. While the deputy and Freitas were talking outside the truck, the suspect's friend, Miguel Mora, slid into the driver's seat and drove away. He parked the vehicle in a field and fled on foot into a nearby forest with a large bag in his hands. Deputies quickly caught up with him. Inside the bag, they found 8 kilograms of methamphetamine with an estimated street value of $748,000. In the truck, they found an illegal pistol belonging to Freitas with the serial number obscured. A search of his phone found text messages detailing he and Mora's plans to buy the drugs in Tennessee and bring them back to Florida for a third party. Both Freitas and Mora pleaded guilty to a federal charge of possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute. They both face a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison and could face life, as well as a maximum fine of $10 million. Number 7. Liza Gravely. In some states throughout the U.S., there's something called habitual offender status, which is a label applied to offenders who are deemed to have criminal lifestyles. It sets them apart from convicts who landed themselves on the wrong side of the law as a result of a few bad decisions. In West Virginia, a jury is required to determine that an offender is guilty of at least 2 out of 3 prior felony convictions in order to be designated an habitual offender. Such was the case for Liza Gravely, who was accused of further crimes in West Virginia in 2022 after receiving at least 2 prior convictions out of North Carolina, including robbery and fleeing on foot while intoxicated. The debate came after Gravely was charged with committing a drive-by shooting that left 2 children injured. A jury was unable to determine whether Gravely was guilty of a charge of marijuana possession with intent to distribute from 2013, but that didn't matter. They concluded that he was guilty of the robbery and fleeing on foot charges, and by being designated an habitual offender, it means he could face life in prison if he's found guilty of the drive-by shooting, even though nobody died as a result of the incident. Mercer County Prosecutor Brian Cochran praised the decision to label Gravely an habitual offender as a step in the right direction toward keeping the community safe. He cited it as an example of how violence will not be tolerated in Mercer County. But for Gravely, it means that his chances of returning to society and living a normal life are exceedingly slim, and he may spend the rest of his life behind bars. Number 6. Brishon Wynn. In late 2022, the city of Cincinnati, Ohio was plagued by a series of thefts that saw packages disappearing from both commercial and residential buildings. Authorities eventually realized that the suspect went largely undetected because he was disguising himself as an Amazon delivery man, enabling him to steal the packages in broad daylight without seeming suspicious. After all, most people don't see a delivery person with a package in his or her hands and assume that they're stealing it from the property. The thefts occurred in at least one commercial building and 3 residential apartment complexes. Marie Pope, who lives in one of the apartment complexes that the imposter targeted, told local station Fox 19 that the thefts got so bad, residents joined together to try stopping the problem. But unfortunately, it kept happening. Police ultimately identified the suspect as 33-year-old Brishon Wynn, who they say has a lengthy criminal history consisting of multiple felony convictions. His rap sheet dates back at least 15 years and includes guilty pleas for break-ins he committed at the University of Cincinnati in 2008 and 2010. When Wynn was arrested on suspicion of committing the package thefts in 2022, he was on what's known as intensive supervision probation due to the frequency and severity of his prior arrests. It didn't stop him from allegedly continuing to commit crimes, however, and his most recent string of offenses amounted to thousands of dollars worth of merchandise being stolen over the course of a month. Several of the thefts were captured on surveillance footage. Wynn now faces charges of felony theft, burglary, and breaking and entering. According to records, he reportedly admitted to some of the incidents he's accused of, and he's under electronic monitoring supervision while he awaits the next steps in the court process. Number 5. Rodney Dean Mott. Florida has some of the harshest laws when it comes to forgiveness toward convicted criminals. A career burglar named Rodney Dean Mott learned this the hard way in 2021 when he was sentenced to 15 years of hard time for a break-in he committed in 2019. The crime happened just a month after Mott was released for a previous burglary conviction. His criminal record dates back to the early 1990s and includes multiple convictions for burglary, grand theft auto, aggravated assault on law enforcement officials, and possession of controlled substances. Under what's known as the Prison Releasee Reoffender Statute, also known as the Two Strikes Law, Mott is banned from earning time off his sentences and must serve the maximum sentence for each conviction. Consequently, when he was convicted of burglary in 2007, he was required to serve out the entirety of his 12-year punishment. Now that he's been sentenced for the burglary he committed shortly after his release in 2019, he has no choice but to remain behind bars for 15 years. Hopefully, it's the lesson he needs in order to stay out of trouble once he's released again. While the Prison Releasee Reoffender Statute is meant to keep the worst criminals from being released into society, many criticize it as being too harsh. In some cases, offenders are sentenced to life for crimes that don't warrant such a lengthy punishment. One man, Dorian McElroy, is serving life for an armed robbery charge, even though nobody was harmed. He told Bay 9 News that he accepts responsibility for his crimes, but that he's no longer a danger to society. But unfortunately, he's stuck with a sentence that's meant for someone who's so dangerous they're considered to be past the point of reform. From this angle, some might argue that it's not the offender who goes wrong, but the law. Number 4. Jason McGuire. In 2019, Douglas County, Nebraska implemented the 24/7 sobriety program as an alternative to jail for offenders with drug and alcohol issues. Participants are required to submit to random drug testing as often as twice a day to make sure they're staying clean. The program has reportedly helped many people turn their lives around, but it unfortunately isn't the answer for everyone. And in 2021, investigators began to wonder if at least one participant was an unfit candidate. 32-year-old Jason McGuire was given the chance to be part of the 24/7 sobriety program after being caught with a loaded crossbow, some methamphetamine, drug paraphernalia, and $8,000 in cash. He agreed to be part of the program and posted bond. But just 6 days later, McGuire was caught with meth and a large amount of cash. Chief Deputy Wayne D. Hudson told local station WOWT that authorities needed to take a deeper look at cases like this for the sake of public safety. He said that as a suspected drug dealer, McGuire wasn't a good fit for the program, and that he belonged off the street while his legal issues worked their way through the court system. However, McGuire hadn't been charged with dealing drugs. The second time he got caught with drugs, it was because he'd skipped out on his mandated testing. As a consequence, he was put in jail for 5 days, which authorities said was the standard punishment for violating the program's testing requirements. While the outcome of McGuire's case is unclear, records indicate that he's currently serving a 1-year sentence in the Nebraska prison system with a projected release date of October 2023. Number 3. Damon Callaway. Just 2 weeks after being released from jail for an abuse case in late 2022, 58-year-old Damon Callaway allegedly attacked a cop on a New York City subway. He was accused of hitting the officer in the face and spitting on the cop when he was stopped for jumping the turnstile at a Harlem subway station. Callaway was taken into custody on suspicion of assault on a police officer. He has a lengthy criminal record, to put it mildly. Callaway has a shocking 99 arrests on his mile-long rap sheet, not including his most recent bust. According to a source who spoke with the New York Post, 19 of his previous arrests were for resisting arrest. But Callaway is just one of numerous repeat criminals in the Big Apple who've made headlines in recent years for being arrested dozens of times with seemingly little to no consequence. Many criticized the state's recently imposed lax bail laws as an open invitation for habitual offenders to continue to commit crimes. But in some cases, an offender's record dates back much further than that. And it seems like Callaway may be an example of someone's criminal lifestyle having little to do with bail reform. Number 2. Thomas Lucas. In May 2020, a 30-year-old convicted felon named Thomas Lucas entered a Lakeland, Florida home and forced the resident to open her safe at gunpoint. She gave him $2,400 in cash, and he told her to stay put or he would shoot her. Lucas approached a second victim, who was trying to flee the home, and pointed the gun at him. He ordered the resident to sit down and to not follow him, and threatened to shoot the man if he tried. Neighbors watched as Lucas ran from the house and fled in a white vehicle. Luckily, police apprehended him later that day with the same gun in his possession that he used to commit the robbery. Lucas languished in custody for more than 2 years while the case worked its way through the court system. It gave him a head start on the life sentence he received for armed robbery under Florida's prison release reoffender law, which required him to serve the maximum sentence for the crime due to his prior convictions. Number 1. Daria Brown. One night during the summer of 2022, police in Iowa City, Iowa encountered an upset woman hitting the windows of a bar from outside. Later identified as 22-year-old Daria Brown, she allegedly admitted to assaulting a bar employee. The bar declined to press charges, but Brown was still charged with public intoxication and various other crimes after officers tried and failed to verbally de-escalate her combative behavior. Brown was accused of resisting arrest and assaulting 3 officers as they tried taking her into custody. Body cam footage shows her refusing to cooperate even after being handcuffed. She kicked at the cops as they tried to put her in the backseat of a squad car, and she even attempted to grab an officer's taser. At one point, an officer could be seen repeatedly striking Brown in the back, leading some to wonder if the cops handled the situation too harshly. The police told local station KCRG that the young woman had a history of being belligerent toward law enforcement. Shortly after being released from custody following the arrest, Brown learned that she was wanted for a probation violation, so she turned herself in. At the time, she was on probation for similar crimes and had numerous arrests under her belt, revealing a clear pattern with her behavior that she might want to consider avoiding in the future. Would you rather have your house broken into for a second time by a burglar after a judge let him go for the first offense, or have someone who broke into your house receive an unfairly heavy sentence due to their past record? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!